a lot of members of the community had changes to their water. So their water turned brown or wiley, and quite a few people actually had wells dry up. 60 homes in the community of Penobscot lost their water immediately after the seismic program by Potash Corporation. So this is an actual image from Elgin, New Brunswick, where they have drilled the new 2 shale test wells in the province. So this is just to demonstrate what comes after the seismic program, why they want to do the seismic program. It's leading to potentially honing in on where they want to drill. They wouldn't want to drill kind of willy-nilly across the landscape. It's very expensive to drill a well. So this program allows them to figure out where their best chances of finding gas actually are. And then, of course, as part of that process is the hydraulic fracturing process, which most people are familiar with and have a lot of concerns about. So the hydraulic fracturing process is the kind of narrow point in time in which the fracking occurs. And the hydraulic fracturing is the technology in combination with a number of other things that is really what makes this process different and new and of concern. So while hydraulic fracturing itself has been around for quite a while, the combination of fracking with horizontal drilling, high volume slick water fracturing on multi-well pads is relatively new to the industry. And so the scale, the depth of the shale layers actually means a huge increase in the process of gas drilling and fracking and extraction. And so it's the scale that's needed, the amount of water, the amount of chemicals, the amount of uncertainty that comes with creating this process that is what makes the shale gas development unique and concerning. So basically, hydraulic fracturing in a nutshell is pressurizing that wellbore to such an extent that it cracks the rock and allows the gas to escape. So it goes from a high pressure to a low pressure and flows naturally up the wellbore to be collected at the top. And with that is the mixture of additives or chemicals that are needed for multiple functions, for creating a slick wellbore to make sure that the gas flows smoothly and freely, biocides to make sure that nothing builds up in the well, lubricants, a bunch of things that are part of the process. So that well is pressurized, and as that well is pressurized, that creates the fractures in the rock, and the gas returns. With that returns a lot of wastewater. So we have a list of kind of potential impacts, or actually there's some guaranteed impacts and potential risks to our environment. Kind of the general topic areas are this industry, this process is very water intensive. It does include a lot of chemicals. We've got contaminated wastewater, freshwater contamination. Inherently, that's part of the process, contaminating freshwater in order to use in the process. Toxic air emissions, and then landscape scarring and fragmentation. So just the placement of well pads, the clearing of land, the road infrastructure, the associated infrastructure like pipelines, compressor stations, gathering lines, those types of things that we're really not having much discussion about at this point in time. And then community disruption and quality of life. So, we talk to a lot of people who talk about the increase in truck traffic to their community, or the having to deal with workers constantly if they're on their property, potentially workers not abiding by contracts that landowners have, and just that kind of constant either disrespect or constant, just having to deal with that stuff on a daily basis. So I just have a series of photos coming up to illustrate some of those topics that I was just mentioning. So this image is actually from either Colorado or Wyoming. And I will say that since gas development in this state, the distance between well pads has increased. So the scale or the number of well pads, the density of well pads is probably not this high. I think it's every 5 square kilometers that's projected for New Brunswick with the technology. The horizontal drilling allows companies to go about 2.5 kilometers horizontally underground. So as well as well pads on the landscape, I mentioned that there is a lot of infrastructure associated with the industry that we're not really talking about yet. We're still talking about potential water concerns, potential air concerns, but we haven't really talked about what does this mean as a whole, as an industry as a whole. What are the associated pieces of infrastructure that's required? It's just not a well pad here and there. Everywhere there's a well pad, there are required infrastructure to transport that gas to some place else. We also have things like dehydration units, which purify the gas that comes back wet or with other constituents. In order to get it to the stage where it's ready for market, those things need to be removed. So there's venting and flaring and separation of those things. There's pipelines, and a lot of these photos that are here I took on a trip to Arkansas at the end of January. So this is an example of some swaths. I think this is actually the same photo zoomed in. And so these are crisscrossing the landscape. They range in size from collecting pipelines to very large distribution pipelines like the Maritimes Northeast pipeline that we currently have in New Brunswick. So it's extremely water intensive, and that is one of the concerns that we do hear a lot. Where is the water going to come from? Is it drinking water? Why would we want to pump millions of liters of good fresh drinking water into the ground? And in Elgin, I believe it took 4 million liters of water to frack one well, and that was 600 tanker truckloads of water coming into that community to fill up this water holding tank that you can see in the image to the right. So these are one well with the water holding pond in Elgin, New Brunswick. I took that from an aerial view. That's the same water pond. I just wanted to give you some scale. So of course, different companies do have different practices for how they get their water. Apache bought this water from the city of Moncton, so that was treated by taxpayer dollars and sold to the industry to be injected contaminated with chemicals and injected into the ground. Other companies create retention ponds on the landscape to capture rainwater, which I've been told is wasted anyway. And so for me, a question arises as to capturing all that rainwater that recharges 64% of New Brunswick's drinking water supply in rural areas. 64% of New Brunswickers have their own private well. And so there are questions around how does that interrupt that cycle or change that cycle? Do we know if it does or not? And chemicals, of course, is something else that we hear a lot about and have a lot of concerns. I guess the amount of disclosure of chemicals depends on the company. Some companies say that they disclose fully the chemicals in New Brunswick or elsewhere. We have yet to see any formal regulation in New Brunswick as to mandatory